Hello and welcome back to Nostalgia Rewind, the series where I take a look back at some of the games I feel most nostalgic for and see how they hold up now. Today's game is Kirby's Epic Yarn. Kirby's Epic Yarn was released on the Wii in 2010. It sold over 1.8 million copies, making it the best-selling Kirby game on the Wii, just barely beating out Kirby's Return to Dreamland. The game is a 2D platforming adventure, although it's not exactly your usual 2D Kirby game. Epic Yarn is more like a spin-off from the main series, with a unique visual style and some different gameplay mechanics. And now that Kirby finally has a proper 3D platformer on the Switch, it's the perfect time to look back at one of his most fun and creative adventures. I first played this game as a kid at my best friend's house. I remember hanging out in his basement playing through the first few levels with co-op, and I thought I got the cooler character because I had a crown. Then my friend's mom came down and gave us some grilled tuna sandwiches, which are amazing, and I don't care what you say, you guys can argue about tuna in the comments. Sitting on that couch eating a delicious lunch with my friend while the World 1 music played in the background is one of my favorite childhood memories. Back to Kirby though, I remember really enjoying playing the game, and even though it was super easy, it was so full of charm and personality that I ended up asking for a copy of the game for my birthday. It was one of the few games from my childhood that I actually beat, since it was so easy and I could actually make it to the final boss. I mean, have you seen World 8 from New Super Mario Bros. Wii? There's no way 7-year-old me was making it through all of that. But the super easy difficulty is actually one of the more divisive parts about Kirby's Epic Yarn. You can't even actually die in this game. Getting hit or falling down a hole just results in you losing some gems. Here's my take on it. Yes, the game is very easy, but the level design and platforming gameplay itself is actually a lot of fun, and there's so much creativity and happiness crammed into this game that makes it a joy to play through. I don't think every game has to present a super tough challenge, so I'm totally fine with chilling out and playing a game like this every now and then. The other big thing about this game is that it doesn't really play like a normal 2D Kirby game. There's no sucking up enemies and getting copy abilities this time around. The game actually started development as a totally original project starring Fluff as the main character, but the team had trouble with the overall vision of the game. Then Nintendo stepped in and offered to turn it into a Kirby game. Everyone agreed, and that's how we got Kirby's Epic Yarn. Even though it might not feel like classic Kirby, I absolutely love this game and I'm excited to go back and play it again for this video. Let's not waste any more time and get right into the game itself. The game opens with a super cute cutscene showing how Kirby gets sucked into Patchland because of Yin Yarn the Sorcerer. Actually, this cutscene might be a little too cute, as the voiceover narration guy sounds like he's reading the story to a 3-year-old.
This grass feels funny, Kirby thought. It feels like pants. And to Kirby's surprise, he saw that his entire body was made out of yarn.
Anyways, Kirby ends up in Patchland and quickly figures out that he can't suck up enemies like he used to, but he can transform into lots of different things now that he's made out of yarn. We're formally introduced to Prince Fluff himself, who is controlled by the second player if you're playing co-op. I love this little guy, and I really wish he'd become a more regular Nintendo character because he's awesome. Now we learn all about Kirby's moveset in this game. His main form of attack is with his Yarn Whip, where he can unravel enemies and turn them into balls of yarn. He can also turn into a tiny submarine while underwater, do a ground pound, float in the air by turning into a parachute, and sprint by turning into a car. Even from just the opening tutorial, it's clear that this game is super charming and has amazing visuals with a really great soundtrack too. The entire world is made out of crafted materials, which makes the levels just so much fun to look at. Honestly, a huge reason why I love this game so much is because of the fantastic visuals. Then we arrive at Quilty Square, which acts as the main hub area for the game. There's a furniture and fabric shop at the center of town, and Patch Plaza where you can see your total collecting progress, listen to level songs, rewatch cutscenes, and view all the characters. I always love when games have built-in music players, so I'm really glad that was included. Quilty Square is also where Kirby gets his very own apartment, and you can even customize it with different furniture, wallpaper, and flooring. The customization tools are actually pretty in-depth, so you can create some really cool stuff. The room I made when I was a kid just has a whole lot of orange in it. I mean, I guess I stuck with the basic theme at least, but I wasn't exactly an interior designer. It's always a lot of fun to come back here and decorate your apartment with new items you've collected in the levels. By the end of the game, I was able to put together a room that I'm pretty proud of. It's still a little basic, but I like the vibes it gives off. There's another apartment too, and once you decorate it with certain items, a new person named Zeke moves in and opens up the option to play a hide-and-seek minigame with him in certain levels. You can also add 2 more layers of apartments on top of that by paying the mustache owner dude, opening up 4 more rooms. Once you put all the specific items in the rooms, you'll end up with Beedrix, who lets you play a bead collecting minigame, Carrie, who has Kirby carry her to a certain location, Buster, who has you fighting a certain number of enemies, and Mara, who races against Kirby. All of these timed minigames are decently fun, but they aren't super engaging. Easily my favorite one is with Mara, where you race against her across different levels. I think it's pretty cool that this game has this extra side content with the apartments. Both the customization and unlocking new characters gives the player something to do besides just completing levels. And with Quilty Square covered, we can move on to talking about the main content of Kirby's Epic Yarn, the levels. I'll be playing through all of the levels and giving my thoughts and opinions on what I play. So let's get started with World 1. World 1 Grassland starts with Fountain Gardens, a pretty simple level teaching you the basic mechanics of the game. Each level has 3 collectibles in it, 2 pieces of furniture and a music track. You're also graded at the end of each level depending on how many gems you collected. This level has some fountains that fling you up into the air, and also can we just take a moment to appreciate how cute the Waddle Dees are in this game? I know they're supposed to be the enemies, but even their attack is just so cute. Then the level ends with Kirby transforming into a giant tank bot, where you fire some missiles to fight off these flying guys with bombs. Motion controls are used to aim, which feels pretty good to control. This game has tons of these transformations, and they really help the gameplay feel fresh and interesting. Once that section is done, we ring the bell to end the level and Prince Fluff joins in for an adorable end-of-level dance. There's actually multiple different versions of this dance and they're all amazing. Once you beat a level, you receive a patch that will unlock the next one by changing the overworld in some way. Like waking up a sleeping bear who raises the land, using treasure to lure in a pirate boat, or calling some UFOs and using their space beams as platforms. I love that this game takes a more creative approach to unlocking the next level. Next up we have Flower Gardens, where probably one of my favorite gameplay mechanics in the whole game is introduced, these buttons that let you swing back and forth on them. These are so much fun to jump between, and the sense of momentum is really great. The end of this level introduces the UFO transformation, which is pretty slow and hard to control, but I think that's the point. By sucking up objects and enemies, you build up an electric charge that you can release to destroy everything around you. And also the Waddle Dees are absolutely terrified of it, as they run and hide once they see you. Sometimes I wonder if we're really the hero of the story, because Kirby sure seems to enjoy killing all these cute and innocent creatures. Anyways, once that's done, we're on to the next level, Rainbow Falls. Here you're fighting against water currents and eventually end up turning into this big penguin surfer dude and you can spin to jump off of enemies. I like this one a lot. It's probably one of my favorite transformations. Then we have Big Bean Vine, where you climb upwards by standing on these poor Waddle Dees balloons. Then we unlock the boss level for this world, where you fight this big green dragon, and you have to pull on his tongue to defeat him. Once he's dealt with, we get a super cute cutscene of Kirby and Prince Fluff trying to get some fruit from a tree, and then the next world is unlocked. But we're not going to go there just yet, because this game does a strange thing where if you get a good enough score during the boss fight, you can unlock 2 extra levels, so let's go over those quickly. There's Mole Hole, where Kirby turns into a digging machine and you dig through all of this fluff to get to the end of the level. And then there's Weird Woods, where you play as a UFO for the whole level, making your way through waves of enemies, cannonball fire, and spiky plants. This is an auto-scroll level, so you have to keep up with the camera, which is always annoying. There's also a little mini boss fight against this purple tree. And that's it for World 1, so now let's move on to World 2. World 2, Hotland, begins with Pyramid Sands, where you have to make your way through this desert landscape full of sinking sand and tornadoes. At the end of the level, we get yet another Kirby transformation section, and this time it's an off-road racing buggy. You race against 2 other drivers, and I ended up running into some cacti and got second. But if I kill everyone else, that makes me the real winner. On to the next level, Lava Landing. Here you have to avoid some lava, bombs falling from the sky, and seal up these volcanoes to move forward. Then Kirby turns into this tiny fire engine so you can spray water everywhere. You control the water with motion controls, and once again it feels really good. This game uses motion controls really well, where they don't ever get annoying and actually make the gameplay feel more precise. Then there's a big escape scene where you jump upwards as a giant volcano erupts behind you, and this level is done. On to Cool Cave, where you have to navigate these small tunnels in the ground and jump around on falling rocks. Then we transform back into the digging machine to dig through some more fluff and get to the end. Up next is Dino Jungle. You have to jump across some giant dinosaurs, and these ones move without you, so you have to keep up with them. Then there's these two giant T-Rexes at the end, and this level is completed. And just like that, it's already time for the boss fight of this world, Hot Wings. No, not like that. This giant bird with flaming wings is actually pretty tough, as he flies all over the screen and shoots lots of fireballs. I'll never get tired of yanking bosses into the corner in this game, it's just so much fun to do. And with the magic yarn saved, we get access to World 3, and we see Yin Yarn planning something evil involving King DDD. But let's go over the extra levels from World 2 before we move on. Temper Temple has you riding on a boat in the lava as a fire engine, dodging enemies and spraying water. The extra levels are always a little more challenging, and this one is no exception. Then there's Dusk Dunes, which has you racing against a whole bunch of other racers, using some super powerful rocket boosts along the way. I actually managed to get in first this time, with no killing required. And with that level done, we can move on to World 3. The first level in World 3 Treatland is Toy Tracks, where you have to platform through this place full of giant toys and enemies. Then we get introduced to easily the worst transformation in this game, the train. You have to use the Wii Remote pointer to draw tracks for Kirby to drive on, and holy crap is this thing a nightmare to control. It's so hard to get the train to go where you want it to, and it's constantly turning around or falling off the tracks, making things really frustrating. Once that level is over, we can move on to Mushroom Run, which is a level full of lots of bouncy and swinging mushrooms. Slamming down on a mushroom and flying through the air is super fun. Next up is Sweets Park, where everything is made out of delicious desserts and sweets. There's some platforming on giant spinning donuts, and this level is done. Then there's Melody Town, a level with a ton of different musical instruments that play music notes when you jump on them. Kirby even turns into this cute little music note at some parts, which is just adorable. This world's boss fight is up next, where we face off against Squashini. This magician, trickster, pumpkin guy decides what attack to use based on a big slot machine in the center of the stage. There's a hat shuffling one where he throws cards at you, and there's even one where he ties Kirby to a giant exploding bomb. I love the design of this boss fight. There aren't too many boss fights out there themed around Halloween and casinos at the same time. Kirby and Prince Fluff eat a giant cake, and World 4 is unlocked. But as usual, let's cover the two extra levels. First we have Coco Station, which is sadly an entire level based on the train transformation. But once we make it through that torture, we're on to the final level of this world, Dark Manor. This spooky location is so dark you can't see anything without a source of light, so you'll have to carry around some bright yarn and light some lanterns. And now we're finished with World 3 and can move on to the next one. World 4 Waterland is a tropical-themed paradise, with Splash Beach being the first level. It starts out being nighttime with some super calming music, but once you make your way up into the clouds and wake up the sun, the tropical fun can begin. There's a lot of underwater swimming in this level, and thankfully Kirby actually controls pretty well underwater. There's some big waves you swim through, and it's on to the second level, Blub Blub Ocean. You're underwater for basically this entire level, and halfway through Kirby transforms into a dolphin. It's so much fun to swim around as a dolphin, especially jumping out of the water. Once we get through these waterfalls, it's time for the next level, Secret Island. This place has a tropical jungle theme, with you constantly going back and forth between the front and the back of the vines. Then we swim all the way down to the bottom of the overworld map to find Deep Dive Deep, an underwater level full of terrifying ocean creatures. Turn into a dolphin, escape this giant anglerfish, and it's time for the boss fight of World 4, Kapamari. This whole fight takes place underwater. First you have to avoid his attacks while unraveling his head, and then he turns red and starts hiding and attacking. Once he's beat, we unlock World 5, and King DDD is captured by Yin Yarn. The first extra level is Boom Boatyard, an auto-scrolling level where you have to avoid missiles falling from the sky and fight this big blue cannon dude. Once he's beat, it's on to the last level of World 4, Fossil Reef. This one has you turn into a dolphin again and swim through some floating circles of water. And with that completed, it's time for World 5. World 5 is Snowland, and the first level is Snowy Fields. Look out for the Waddle Dees throwing snowballs, and then there's some ginormous snowballs rolling at you that you have to avoid, and this level is over. The second level is Cozy Cabin, a wonderful holiday-themed level where you go in and out of different cabins and climb Christmas trees. I love winter-themed levels, and this one is really great, although some of these cabins aren't so cozy since there's spikes and enemies everywhere. Onto Mount Slide, where this time you aren't a surfboarding penguin but a snowboarding one instead. There's some falling rocks to make things more interesting, and this level is done. Frosty Wheel is the next one, and this one is amazing because Kirby turns into a sled instead of a car when you sprint, making sliding around super fun. You even glide across water if you have enough momentum, which is really cool. And for the boss fight of this world, we fight King DDD himself, although he's being controlled by some evil yarn strings. He attacks you with his giant hammer, and once he's down you can pull apart the strings controlling him. I actually had to do this fight a couple times, not because it was too difficult, but because I kept defeating him too fast without collecting enough gems to unlock the extra levels. Once King DDD is defeated, the next world is unlocked and we're introduced to Meta Knight, who is captured by Yin Yarn. Frigid Fjords is the first extra level, and this one is another racing level. I don't think I'll ever get tired of these races because they're just so much fun. Then there's Evergreen Lift, a level where you have to keep this platform moving upwards while you fight off waves of enemies. Once you reach the top, the star is put on top of the tree, and World 5 is completed. World 6, Spaceland, opens with Future City, a futuristic themed level where you ride on rocket train cars, walk around on some conveyor belts, and turn into a UFO. Next up is Tube Town, where you jump around on these blue blocks that have moving waves that hurt you. You also have to lead these yellow string guys to outlets so they can plug in and power up these moving blue energy lines. Also, I had this really terrible part where I lost like half my gems in 5 seconds, so that sucked. The next level is Mysterious UFO, where surprisingly, Kirby actually never turns into a UFO. Instead, you're turning on and off a switch that changes the ship into low gravity, letting you jump super high and far, which is a lot of fun. Then once that's done, there's Stellar Way, a level full of rotating stars and comets falling from the sky. Then Kirby transforms into this little rocket ship that shoots stars, and the game turns into a shoot 'em up for a while. I love how the transformations in this game constantly change things up and keep the gameplay interesting. Then it's time to fight Meta Knight, who is the boss of this world. This fight is actually really intense, as Meta Knight flies right up to you and swings his sword at you. You have to catch the waves of flame he shoots at you and send it flying back to beat him, and every time you do, he gets a more powerful sword. He even blocks your attacks with his sword, which feels like cheating. This is probably the best boss fight in the whole game, since there's no gameplay gimmick, it's just a one-on-one duel between the two of you. I remember thinking this was the final boss when I was a kid, and I was shocked when there ends up being a whole other world. Meta Knight is defeated, and Patchland is all put back together. But Meta Knight tells Kirby that Yin Yarn has totally taken over Dreamland. So Kirby hops in a magic sock portal and heads back to Dreamland. But before we can do that, we have some extra levels to complete. First there's Moonbase, where you transform into the big tank bot again, only this time it's in low gravity so you can jump extra high. This part with the comets raining down from above is pure chaos. And finally there's Outer Rings, which is another shoot 'em up level as Rocket Kirby. This one's a lot harder though, and you fight this Dark Cloud mini-boss at the end. And now World 6 is done, which means we can move on to the final world of this game. Dreamland is the 7th world, and it opens with Wispy's Forest, which looks like a classic Kirby stage except everything is made out of yarn. At the end there's another tank bot section where you fight this big tree to end the level. Tempest Towers has you climbing up a big tower by using the wind that blows in different directions. And once you reach the top, it's on to the next level. Cloud Palace has lots of these flying buttons that you swing between, which makes you feel like Spider-Man. Then this big spiky cloud guy shows up and chases you through the rest of the stage, which is super annoying. Time for more shoot 'em up action, but this time it's from a side view and you're a starship instead of a rocket. Then you get to take out that annoying cloud guy from before. The next level is Castle DDD. A big castle full of red carpet, Waddle Dees, and a whole lot of paintings of King DDD. Climb up some giant red cannonballs and this level is done. Then Yin Yarn shows up and turns the whole overworld map dark, and it's time for the final boss of the game. But let's actually cover the extra levels first because that makes more sense. There's Meta Melon Isle, a really awesome level where you go through multiple different sections that all use the many different transformations from your adventure. There's a race, you turn into a fire engine, a dolphin, the penguin surfer, and sadly the train is here too. And then there's the Battleship Halberd level, which is a big long level where you play as the starship and shoot lots of stuff. And with that, I've covered all of the levels in this game. So now let's take on the final boss, Yin Yarn the Sorcerer. The battle starts with him bringing back some of the previous bosses, like the dragon and the squid guy. Then he puts a giant piece of cloth over the screen and you have to jump to the top and hop out. Grab some enemies to hit him, then yank him across the screen to save the magic yarn. But just when you think this fight is over, yep, there's one more boss phase, where Meta Knight swoops in and helps you transform into the tank bot to take him on. This is a pretty epic way to end the game, especially when he goes absolutely insane and shoots giant missiles in every direction. I don't know what it is with 2D platformers on the Wii, but they love faking you out with an extra phase in the final boss. Kirby and Prince Fluff send Yin Yarn all the way back to Patchland, and the day is saved for real this time. Dreamland returns to normal, Kirby and Prince Fluff say goodbye to each other, and the credits roll. I have to admit, I was a little scared this game wouldn't be as good as I remember it being, but I'm happy to say that it holds up super well and is still a fantastic game to this day. It's so much fun to play and it just makes me happy, which should be the goal of any good video game. I want to give a special shout out to the absolutely incredible music. The songs in this game are so emotional and beautiful. It's got to be one of my favorite Nintendo soundtracks. I haven't played too many Kirby games, so I can't tell you how well this game holds up when compared to the rest of the series, but I think this game is amazing, and it was so much fun to play it again for this video. I'm also really looking forward to playing Kirby and the Forgotten Land on Switch. But what do you think about this game? Have you played this game, or did you miss out on this one? Let me know down in the comments. That's it for this Nostalgia Rewind on Kirby's Epic Yarn. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.